I'm super excited and optimistic about the future of humanity. So I'm loving work. Can't wait for the alarm to go off in the morning. I usually don't have to set it because I beat it to get up, because the mission of what we're trying to do at Hancock Lumber is so exciting to me that I can't wait to get up and start working on it. So I'm really thinking about the idea of reinventing work, what it means to work. And I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, but that old model of we work so that we can live on the weekend, we work so that we can live on vacation, we work so that we can live in retirement, is such a unfortunate, unnecessary idea, because for most of us across the course of our life, we spend such a significant amount of time at work that to forfeit that big chunk of time, or to lower our expectations for what that chunk of time can be about, is such a missed opportunity. And so I'm really excited about the idea of reinventing that. And some of the thoughts for me that go with reinventing work are as follows. It starts, number one, with changing the mission of work. And at Hancock Lumber, for example, we have decided that the purpose of our company is to improve the lives of the people that work there. That's the purpose of the company. We're going to make lumber, we're going to grow trees, we're going to deliver building materials, we're going to do all those things, but that's not the mission. The mission is to add real value to the quality of the lives of the people who work there. And we feel that if we get that right, that if we do right by the people who work at the company, they will figure out how to take world-class care of the customer, and the company will be well served in the end. So it starts by resetting the mission. The mission is to improve the quality of the lives of the people who work at the company. The second objective we've adopted in our industry, which is a bit different from some others, but I call it putting the work back in its place. Where it's important, we're committed, we're competitive, we want to do a good job, but we are not going to let work become all-consuming. In our industry, the challenge isn't part-time work and helping people have more hours and more income because they're only working 20 or 25 or 28 hours a week. 100% of our employees essentially are full-time. In our industry, the issue is typically you work 50 to 60 to 65 hours a week to get the work done. And it was really messy and stressful and disorganized, and it took all weekend to recover to get ready to do it again. And the pay levels traditionally in the industry were on the low side, but because you worked 25 hours of overtime, your paycheck came out okay. And we're not okay with that. And so we're really taking on the challenge of putting the work back in its place, a 40-hour work week, reinventing pay systems, the overtime system. We're taking on some really big, iconic structural ideas like overtime pay, which, for where humanity wants to go, is a backward objective. Because what overtime pays for is the longer it takes, the more you make. And we want to figure out how to make things take less time by getting it right the first time. And in order to do that, you've got to build a brand new pay system that pays for people figuring out how to do it more efficiently. So we've taken on the goal of creating an environment where our people can work less, work easier, and earn more. And none of that is easy to do, but that's what we're trying to do. That's what we want to do. The third component for us of reimagining work, so this comes right back to the shared mission between ChIME and Hancock Lumber. The third component of reimagining work for us is celebrating the sacred light that lives within every single person who's a part of our team. And that goal brings me to the next goal, which is to redefine leadership as something that everybody does. Everybody leads. Everybody has an important voice. Everybody has good ideas. Leadership is not something that a few people do. Leadership is something that everybody does because there is a sacred light that lives within everybody. Which brings me to the final part of the puzzle, which is creating new organizational systems that push power out from the center versus collecting it in. We are looking for ways to deconstruct bureaucracy, to make the office or the capital or the headquarters or the man or whatever you'd want to call it smaller, hard to find. My instincts started to take over, and I've since come to believe they're called instincts for a reason. Like, they know what to do if we will get out of the way and let them do it. And with my situation, it was simple. When it's hard to talk, you talk less. And you learn strategies for talking less. And the biggest one is you learn to ask lots of questions. And specifically, you learn to answer a question with a question only to get the conversation initially back on the other person. Not because it's this like brilliant leadership strategy. So this is what started happening at work. I'm not kidding, it started this simple. People would come up to me, because I'm the boss, with a question or a problem, and they would pose it to me, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to give any kind of answer. So I started saying, geez, that is a great question. What do you think we should do about it? Ding, ding. Ding, ding. Ding, ding. And then that person, this threw people off at first, but eventually, people started to know, don't go ask Kevin a question unless you have an opinion as to what we're going to do about it. So the person would say what he or she thought, and if it was at all reasonable, which it was like 99.99% of the time, I would then say, that sounds good, let's do that. And off that person would go with his or her solution to his or her problem. And that was the beginning of our company, which had always done well, but our company actually starting to take off. And it was that simple, and it was completely innocent. It took me a while to realize the lesson there and the opportunity there, but in time I did, and that built into this really simple model of what if we could create an organization where everybody led. Wouldn't an organization where everybody led not only outperform a more traditional, hierarchical, bureaucratic structure where a few people sat on the top of the mountain and gave the answers. But wouldn't it be more socially valuable? Wouldn't it be more vibrant? Wouldn't it make it more fun to work there? Wouldn't it be a place where everyone could lead, where everyone could grow, where everyone could learn? Wouldn't that bring spirituality and business together? The quest for personal growth and the quest for organizational excellence together as one thing. What if we could harness that? What if we could harness that? And I've been in pursuit of that idea ever since, because I became convinced there's no medical doctor in America that will say there is a cause for SD, but I know why I got SD. And it was actually a gift, and it was a gift from my own soul, and it was a pretty aggressive gift. It was, I called it in hindsight now, a warning shot across my bow, that there were some things I needed to learn. There were some ways in which I wanted to change. And this, on the surface, problem or disability or liability was actually a blessing, and it was a calling, and it was a gift, and it was an opportunity. All tribes have a tendency to pick their favorite parts of their own story and to set to the side the parts of their story that don't fit as well. And that led me deeper into the whole idea of being aware, independent, conscious, and aware. And that this is something all tribes do. Even the Lakota Sioux did the same thing. One of the greatest ironies of this story to me was that the people I was visiting acquired their land the same way they lost it. So the Sioux, the Lakota, lived on the Missouri River originally. And as a result, they were the first Northern Plains tribe to trade in volume with people coming up the Missouri. And so as a result, they were the first to acquire guns, the most guns, horses, the most horses, and they then began moving west onto the plains, and because they were the strongest, they displaced many other smaller tribes to create the territory that became theirs. But they don't like to talk about that part of their story any more than we don't like to talk about the fact that Columbus didn't discover a new world. And that all led me to think about history globally and how the most common outcome of history has been those who have the upper hand go too far. They overreach. I've come to call it overreaching, taking more than is necessary. And that's not a uniquely American thing, a Russian thing, a Lakota thing. It is tribalism. Those who are the strongest often, not always, but often overreach. And that overreaching defined the Piscean age and the age before, and that therefore its opposite, restraint, is going to define leadership in the Aquarian age. And restraint to me was having the power but not using it. Having the ability as the CEO to make all the decisions, to make all the statements, to run all the meetings, but not doing so. And I don't take, again, any credit for, I never would have figured this out without my voice being taken away, that some things came into my life to help me see this. When I learned about or listened about their sacred rites, the Lakota have 7 sacred rites, as they tell it, that were brought to them long ago, before the coming of the before the coming of the horses, which came with the Spanish. No horses before the Spanish. in the Americas. 7 sacred rites brought to them by the white buffalo calf woman, and they were all designed, in my view, when I learned about them, to strengthen the power of the individual spirit that lives within us all. By way of example, the Vision Quest. You would have heard of this rite. In the Vision Quest rite, the fundamentals of this rite are so cool and spot on to me. In the Vision Quest rite, you had to leave your tribe alone, and you had to sequester yourself in nature with intention, seeking a vision. The Lakota term is hamble chi'a, which translated means to cry for a vision. And it's such a, I get goosebumps when I think about the idea. And it's really, to me, as I understand it, 2 concepts. One is sitting with nature, feeling, engaging your connectivity to all that's around you. That power is dispersed and you're a part of it. And that your power lives within you, not at the Capitol, but within you. And that through prayer and awareness, you might gain a vision or a glimpse into your path, your truth, your direction, your own voice. And if you were lucky enough to receive a vision, you were expected to come back to your tribe, stand before the tribe, and tell everybody who you were. And the idea to me was right out of Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book, that iconic line, the strength of the pack is the wolf. And that if every individual was pursuing their own truth, was pursuing their own voice, felt free to be who they were, felt free to speak with their own voice, then the tribe by definition would be strong. This really got me thinking about the importance of culture. And I'll back up just a minute on this. You know that old expression that a lot of companies use, our people make the difference? And you can tell I'm a lover of people, you're a lover of people, and it might surprise you at first, but bear with me on this. I don't actually think that's true. I think that's a leadership cop-out. Because I think great people are actually everywhere. The planet is filled with great people. It's the culture that can make the difference. And history plays this out time and time again. Just take a look, for example, one simple example. Germany after World War II. Divided arbitrarily down the middle by where the British and US forces ran into the Russian forces. 2 completely different systems, one more designed to release the power of the individual, one more designed to celebrate the power of the state. One side of Germany flourishes. One side of Germany hangs on with gun towers and barbed wire until it collapses under its own weight. But what was the difference? I mean, I'm going to be really silly with this. It wasn't that all the good Germans happened to be on one side of the line and the less good Germans were on the other. It was the culture that made the difference. And a culture, and then I got super simple about thinking about culture. Does the culture of the organization serve the center, or does the center of the organization serve the membership? And does the organization want to pull power in, or does it want to push power out? And it's black and white, and you can look at any organization on the planet and put it in bucket A or bucket B. And that was the difference between the Lakota life before the reservation era and after. It was the difference between West Germany and East Germany, and that is why leadership matters, because leaders, people who end up in a position of power, have a really big influence over creating the culture. And the culture you create has a really big influence over the outcomes within that society. So in conclusion, I ended up believing there were lots of ways to lose your voice in this world. and that we're all here as spiritual beings living a human experience, just trying to find our own voice, that unique, never to be repeated voice that's yours. And to release it, to find it, to know it, to embrace it, to chase it, and to release it, and to share it with the world. And that organizations, again, are going to get in one of two camps. You're going to line up to love that, or you're going to line up knowingly or unknowingly to resist it. And I got really lucky, I feel, to have come to that. And when and it was super easy for me to decide where I wanted to line up once I realized it. Who wouldn't want to release that? And I was lucky enough, fortunate enough, blessed enough to be in a position to have a company, to lead a company where I could actually try to help do that. And it could be a lumber company. It could be a lumber company in Maine, like the most conservative, traditional industry on the planet. And you could do it. And so we've gone about since 2012 trying to set up systems, business systems designed to push power out, to make the center smaller, to make everybody else's voice bigger through huddles, focus groups, rethinking what it means to be leadership, talking about leadership super differently in terms of restraint and listening and losing ego and service. And that if we take care of others, that's where the loyalty to the company will be built, that people will show real loyalty and enthusiasm for the company because we're showing real loyalty and enthusiasm to them. And while we can't solve all the world's problems, haven't figured out how to make everybody rich or everybody this or that we could make it a little bit better. And what if everybody worked a little bit less and made a little bit more? Would directionally that be the right way to face? One of the things I love about Lakota spirituality is the direction one faces is important. And you don't have to finish or win or arrive in the end zone. You've just got to know your voice and face that way and walk that way.